Well, during a state dinner in Doha, the Emir of Qatar has asked US President Donald Trump to use American pressure to bring peace to the region.
Right now, even as we gather tonight, our teams are engaged in intensive diplomacy to secure a ceasefire in Gaza, to protect all civilians, especially innocent women and children, and ensure the release of all hostages. This conflict is the key to wider stability in the region, from the West Bank to Yemen to Lebanon, and time is short. The people across the region are watching, not for words, but for outcomes. They are waiting to see if this moment brings that peace. They looked at your incredible comeback, at your ability to bring together people of all faiths, and your arrival back at the White House with hope. Your message that the aid will be delivered, and perhaps that a political solution providing safety, justice, and security to all involved in the conflict can be reached. Mr. President, your involvement could catalyze a breakthrough where others have stalled, but only if done in concert with serious partners. Qatar brings the channels, the access, and the credibility. The United States brings power, leverage, and global weight. If we act together, we have a real shot at ending the bloodshed and restoring regional confidence. Mr. President, tonight we don't just mark a visit. We reaffirm a working alliance between two sovereign nations and a shared commitment between two leaders who believe peace comes from strength. Let this visit not just reinforce our alliance, but demonstrate that when leaders act, peace moves closer. President Trump, with God Almighty's protection, help us to keep promises, stand up to the truth, stay loyal to friends, and be true agents of peace.
Well, joining me now is Luciano Zaccara. He's an associate professor of Gulf politics at Qatar University. Also with me on set, James Bays, who's Al Jazeera's diplomatic editor. James, let me start with you. So as we're saying there to Hashim, first time a sitting US president has made an official trip to Qatar. What does this trip mean diplomatically for Qatar in terms of prestige, optics, that burgeoning relationship between both countries, and also on big regional issues like Gaza?
I think this trip is very important for both nations. For Qatar, it's the recognition of its status in the region. For the United States, for Donald Trump, the transactional president, he can bring home what he says are successes. He can point to the figures. In Qatar, $1.2 trillion is what the White House is putting out on their fact sheet of deals done, including that big deal with Qatar Airways for Boeing aircraft. So, of course, that's the one part of it. The other part is the bit that goes on behind the scenes, and that involves, I think, the diplomacy, because Qatar's been a key diplomatic player in this region. In fact, I think encouraged other parts of the region to get involved in diplomacy. The Omanis have been involved in diplomacy for a long time as well. And I think it's fair to say that right now, this is the centre of diplomacy in the world. This is where deals are getting done, not just big business deals, but deals on some of the conflicts in the world. This is where people are coming to try and solve them. And you heard the very strong comments from the Emir there on the situation in Gaza, saying that the two teams are engaged in intensive diplomacy to secure a ceasefire. Earlier, I managed, while President Trump and the Emir were leaving one of their early events, to speak briefly to the Special Envoy, Steve Witkoff, and he painted a pretty positive picture. He says he thinks something could happen in Gaza pretty soon. I asked him whether he was just referring to access for aid, because, of course, aid is completely blocked for the people of Gaza right now, that meaning no food, no medicine is getting into Gaza, or did he mean a ceasefire? He said all of it. I'm positive about all of it.
Luciano, James makes a very important point there. I mean, the trip has been seen as Trump getting these mega deals on investment, trade, defence. How would you assess its impact then on those broader regional issues? James touched briefly on them, but like Syria, Iran and Gaza.
Well, not necessarily for me they are related. I think that what Trump tried to do in this trip is to make sure that the defense of the GCC is justified through business. I mean, now the GCC is much more important for the American industry than ever before with all these deals that they were signed. So this is making the United States to enhance the military and defense relation with the three GCC states after this trip. How this is going to affect the other conflicts, I assume that the most important one, apart from Gaza, if what is what Witkoff said is true, and there is something that is going to be presented soon, is improving the relations with Iran. I think that the way that Trump asked Qatar to intervene or to facilitate or to help in negotiating with Iran, I think is something that is needed in the region in order to pacify much more the region. This is going to reduce the tension. And I think this is the most, or even the issue on Syria. I mean, we know that the lifting of the sanction, even though it's not done yet, it was announced. This was something that it was requested by Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and also that the stop of the attacks in Yemen also happened because of the Saudi request.
James, let me come back to you. I mean, these deals are huge, aren't they? They're talking about this one with Qatar Airways ordering these Boeing aircraft to the tune of $200 billion, according to Trump. How important are these deals diplomatically to both sides? And do these deals facilitate diplomacy in a way?
I mean, I think they're important in terms of, for Qatar, in terms of what it can do and how its economy can evolve. Of course, all of the three countries we're talking about, Saudi Arabia, Qatar and UAE, are dependent on energy and fossil fuels for their wealth right now, and they are countries that are transforming. So I think that's, and trying to transform, and they need US help with that. That's why you've seen experts from tech and AI. Elon Musk was in Riyadh and has been in Doha as well. So that's why those figures have been here. For President Trump, I mean, economically, I think there have been some question marks about the direction he's been taking the US with these tariffs. And I think the fact he can come home and say, look at the money I've raised in the United States, look at the checks that have been signed, is a positive for him at a time when he's facing a fair bit of criticism and whether the stock market has been yo-yoing.
Luciano, let me come back to you. I mean, at that state dinner last night in Doha, we heard Trump, it was quite surprising actually, Trump asked the Emir of Qatar for his help on Iran. What exactly is Trump then asking the Qataris to do? And what role can Qatar play in Trump's efforts to achieve some kind of nuclear deal with Iran?
Well, I think that the role of Qatar would be very important. Actually, I was surprised that the negotiations started with Oman and not with Qatar. So maybe in this stage of this negotiation, Qatar can help in order to facilitate some investment that they were promised in many agreements that they were made with Iran, even in the Beijing agreement that they signed with Saudi Arabia, in which investment were considered, and so far nothing happened. So I think Qatar can play a role of facilitating this kind of investment that Iran also needs. I mean, we said that the GCC states are transforming. Iran is also transforming, and they need more technology to improve their gas industry that is paralyzed.
James, quickly, a very quick question to you. This trip can be broadly seen as a success for Trump, but that bold effort to get Putin directly involved in Ukraine peace talks, that's failed, hasn't it? Just briefly, James.
Lots and lots of diplomatic efforts. The one on Ukraine, President Putin suggested the idea of talks in Istanbul. There will be talks in Istanbul, we think, today. President Putin is not, I think, his bluff was called by Zelensky, but he's not going to go there, and Trump is not going to divert there, as was suggested earlier on. But still, they've managed to get some talks going, at least, in Istanbul.
All right, James Bays and Luciano Zaccara, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.